Hey everybody, Norm here. I am pleased to be with you once again to talk about LabVIEW 2025 Q3 and the enhancements that we've brought to the table. Now, in particular, in this session, we're going to talk about debugging enhancements or things that we've added to the debugging workflow. If you got the larger video that we have, you'll note that this is just one of many features. Nigel was kind of the biggest, flashiest one, but I think this one's going to be really, really impactful no matter who you are in the LabVIEW ecosystem, because of course we're programmers. We spend a lot of time debugging code, whether we like to admit it or not. And so we're going to go ahead and need to get started talking about how some of those things are going to enhance the way that we do our workflow. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, among the things that you see listed here, you can see some of the videos are recorded are asking Nigel and quick open. We're going to go through the debug process, but there's a lot to still see and go through. So if you haven't caught the rest of the videos, either stay tuned or go looking for them. There should be a good playlist set up so that you can go through and look at the rest of that content. But for right now, we're going to get into this idea of debugging, something that is very, very practical for all the things that we do. So I've got a little cheat sheet over to the side here, so hopefully it keeps me honest that I cover all the things that our developers put into this to make a great impact. So the first and foremost one is that now our probe window and our breakpoint window are now merged into one. It is a singular debug window as opposed to having different experiences. And one of the ways that you can just bring it to the surface is through a hotkey of Ctrl+D. Now, this looks like the probe window that we had before, but we'll see some of the variations on the theme. But let's go ahead and just leave this one over here for the brief moment. We can kind of see what happens. So as I go through, what I like to do personally if I'm probing is I like to shift and right click. It just brings up the tools palette, but you could just right click on any wire and you could drop a probe on something of relevance. And so I'll do the array of temporary paths and the data that we're looking at there. And yeah, we'll just leave it there for the moment. So one of the first things that you'll note here is that we have kind of a glyph indicating in the debug window, because don't forget, it's not just a probe window anymore, that this is a probe by the yellow icon. Now, if I were to come and drop a breakpoint on any one of these things, let's drop it on there before that, say that for loop executes. Now you can see that I have a different glyph available around that. Now we're also going to maybe stop it before we say populate the indicator to the right. And so now you can see we have a probe and breakpoint, and just the breakpoint. And you can see in the block diagram, the visuals also look a little bit different. The breakpoints are larger. The breakpoints are now numbered, so you can find them a little bit easier over here within the window. And now the ability to enable and disable breakpoints are also a right click, and now you can enable and disable breakpoints, either one, or really you can press select all and say we can disable all the breakpoints, or we can enable all the breakpoints there. So now we've got the ability to have a lot of those discrete features all looking within that same interface, kind of giving you that input. So now we've got it all merged into one thing. I think if you go to say view, yep, you've got the debug window. You can see that it's listed there as another item if you forget the shortcut. So worry not. All right, so now that we've got our singular debug window, what other things are we seeing about it? Well, a couple other ones. Let me see if I can I'll get a probe on the path here. Let's go ahead and I can still right click and add probe, and you can see that it's listed there. And we're going to go ahead and run this one time. See our breakpoint. I'm going to go ahead and let it run and finish and see a lot of the individual pieces of information. And so what we're seeing here is a couple of things that are different in the probe window is now we have automatic word wrapping on the display type that we've got here. And so now it's a little bit easier for us to go through and see if we have something like a long path, we can see all of it instead of needing to extend the column out for a long period of time just to be able to see that individual path that's available there. So that's one of those things that we've got. Another thing to note in terms of what we're looking at while we're staring at the table here, another thing that has changed is we now are also displaying the milliseconds. It was very common for people to drop a bunch of probes and do a bunch of strange things to understand how many milliseconds it took between each one of the probes, kind of as a way of kind of benchmarking your code, kind of a poor man's benchmarking. And we also removed the date indicator on there. You didn't need a calendar date for most of your probes. And so we're kind of reducing the amount of noise within the probe window while enhancing how much you can see as well. Once again, through the word wrapping and then also through what we've got there. All right, let's go ahead and see some of the other things that are relevant on here in my cheat sheet. Let that run one time. And so now another aspect of what is available within the probe is that you have the ability to declare the specific numeric format of how things are displayed here. And so right now I've got it set up as debug numeric format. Well, that's not actually what I have in my system, but I can go into my LabVIEW.ini file. Let me go ahead and pull that up. And you can see that in my ini file, which I haven't refreshed my version of LabVIEW, but if you add this as a tag to your LabVIEW.ini file within your LabVIEW directory next to your LabVIEW executable, you can go ahead and change that to whatever it is. Now, default, I think I have it as like auto precision 6 points or whatever it is. But now if I were to go ahead and save this, restart LabVIEW, now you would see that reflected properly within the probe window itself. So once again, a user requested feature, trying to once again reduce the noise, add the value to what ends up being displayed here. All right, so we had a couple different things here. Let's see, we got the all breakpoints in memory. Oh yeah, that's another one. I keep forgetting it. Like re-record this video over and over again. Is that not only can you see all probes in memory, which depending on what you have, let's go ahead and see thermal cam debugging. Let's go ahead and open up one of these VIs that I have as well. I'll drop something on the block diagram here. You've always been able to, within the probe window, see multiple of your specific VIs and the hierarchy of probes and breakpoints that you have, but you could never see the same thing with your breakpoints. It was always the breakpoint manager for the specific VI. And so now you can go through and see all the breakpoints that are relevant to all VIs that are in memory, which is ideally, once again, something that should accelerate your development time as you're leveraging probes and breakpoints. Speaking of accelerating your time while working with probes and breakpoints, some of the other things that you can now do as well is that you can go ahead and rename a specific probe. So let me go ahead and click that there, and you can see that it calls it a unique temporary file path. And that's not what I really want. I just kind of want to have it named current path to save. So now we have the ability to go ahead and change the name not only of probes, but even as we were to put, say, breakpoints, I can put those both in there, and I can say, instead of it just being wire, I could say, you know, before loop, and then right click, and once again you get the idea, rename after loop. And of course it's never as clear because they're sequenced here, but now we have the ability to be a little bit more deliberate of giving you control over how easy you can debug what you're looking for. I think maybe, I forget if I mentioned it already, but you can see that now also breakpoints have the number inside of them, also giving you the ability to kind of once again identify closer to what you're looking at, what the name is, and your whole debugging workflow. All right. So the other one, let's see, we've got the milliseconds. We talked about that. We talked about the adding and removing, renaming. We also have the ability here to go ahead and right click and highlight the specific object, be it for a probe. We kind of were always able to kind of find wire on a probe, but now we have it once again unified underneath both probes and breakpoints. Basically what we did, it looks like we took a lot of the features that we had on probes and we brought them into the breakpointing existence as well. All right. Let's see. Some of the other things that we're looking at here is we have the ability to right click a probe and remove directly from the block diagram. That is also a new one. This kind of feature, if I can zoom in on it here, you can see there was always the ability to add a probe, but you could not right click and remove a probe. And so now we have that ability directly from the block diagram. So you might not need the debug window up and visible. Now, speaking of the debug window being up and visible, you can see it takes up a lot of my screen currently as we're doing this video. Now, although I've got 4 monitors, I don't always need to see the probe window up, but I also don't want it hidden within my Windows start bar with umpteen hundred different VIs. And so now what I can do, not only can I press Ctrl+D to bring it forward, but if I don't want to minimize it each time, I can just take this feature here that you can see, and I can change it to not keep the window on top. And that specific feature, let me go ahead and move things around a little bit here. It now allows me to just go ahead and it will disappear as it hides behind the myriad of different windows that you've got. But that's not a problem anymore because now we can bring that window to the forefront simply by pressing Control and D. Once again, accelerating your time to leverage the debugging tools that we all rely on so heavily on a regular basis. All right. So we've got those, and we have the new options button. So one of the ones that we have here, I already noted the keep window on top. Another one that's really slick is the show values on wires, and you may have seen it while I was doing it a moment ago. But let's just go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and let's Control+D. Let's go ahead and remove this up. Let's kind of clear everything that we're looking at here. And we're going to go ahead and just do a highlight on the the index of the for loop, and I'm going to come back over here and the specific first element of the array. Now, I'm going to go ahead and turn execution highlighting on for this one. Actually, I'll use an older feature that we had in the previous version where I can change the speed at which execution highlight runs. And one of the things that you can see is that whether or not I have execution highlighting on or not, actually, it's probably better for me not to, is that when you have execution highlighting on, it kind of shows you the values of the wires. Let's go ahead and turn execution highlighting off. And one of the things that you can see got left behind is wherever there's a probe. So now that feature that you used to only get while using execution highlighting, you now have available on any given probe. Let's show that right there. If I were to kind of, let's go ahead and maybe tighten it up here. Let's go ahead and just hover over that. There you go. Just the index array. And now, even though I don't have my probe window visible, as I run my VI, you can see the last value on the probe. Once again, ideally accelerating your time to insights on what you're working with not even needing to bring the probe window to the forefront. Very useful if you've got kind of a bunch of algorithms and math where it's individual discrete values and you're trying to figure out what happened without having to use the probe window. So that should be an accelerator for you. Now, within the probe window itself, one thing that I've kind of been dancing around is this show probe display. Now, this used to be a little kind of right pull chevron button that would show or hide the probe display that you were used to use. And I use this a lot. I use this feature quite a bit because I work with a lot of time series data, a lot of RF information, or just any kind of sequence of data. And so what I would do typically is I would probe an individual piece of information, and it might show up as a just an array. Well, I don't, we can go ahead and run this code, and you can see that I can see all the information that's available there. But one of the things that's causing me a bit of a problem is that I don't need to see it all as one individual array. I instead wanted a custom probe. And what you used to have to do is you used to delete the probe and drop a brand new probe as a custom probe, but now it's unified in this new debug window. And so I can very quickly look at all the different types of probes that data can get loaded into. And I can do, say, let's do a real double array probe. Now this is a custom probe that I've made. That's just a LabVIEW VI that takes data, displays it as a graph, does the FFT, displays it, can show you the frequency phase relationship, and also show some of the statistics about it. So a very useful probe. If you like this probe, or if you work with complex data sets or otherwise, do a Google search for RF LabVIEW probes and you'll find it and you can install it. We're not going to get into that in this session, but it was the ability, very easy ability, without rerunning the code, reloading the information. I could go through and change the specific probe that I was just looking at for. I can go back to a generic probe and show that same one again. All right, so that brings us to a wrap here. So thank you so much. And please before you close the video, give us some comments below. Did you find that we gave you what you were looking for? Are you looking for more things in the debugging experience? What do you need? Not only do we want to see them in the video, but we also want to see it in the LabVIEW idea exchange. We're getting a lot of our brand new ideas, or just a lot of the things of prioritizing what we want to do directly from the community. So if you're liking it, you're not liking it, let us know. We're eager for that feedback. And hopefully you find that some of these experiences and enhancements in the debug process helped you code faster. And we're looking forward to hearing back from you. And I'll talk to you in the next videos. Thanks.